Good evening, good afternoon, good night. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Salutations.
So, running a little bit behind. Alright, so, no over exaggeration, and with all due, ardent, blatant honesty, thank you all for being here, and I look forward to tonight's episode, as I look forward to every facet of the expression of your talents. Thank you, and thank you. Does anyone have any questions, suggestions, hypotheses, or corners we need to round off before diving in? Oh, enviable silence, stating that we are all of an accord. Going once, going twice. All right. Well, that being the case, that we are all in the same book, if not the same page, chapter, and verse, I'd like to say that this is officially Soup City Sins Season 18, Episode 4. Not going all the way and not starting. In the last few weeks, the political hemispheres of the world that the Shelter Coterie inhabits has shifted several times, each shifting that of a continental deciding to move hemispheres, not just move as tectonic plates bounced against each other. No. There was a shifting of northern hemisphere for southern hemisphere, for western hemisphere, for eastern hemisphere. The poles all but flipped in the scrabbling, jealous, power-seeking mad rush of the kindred in the world at large. Some of those movements remain as of yet unseen. Others of those movements striking all the way to the quick, driving right through the center of the coterie. All in all, it's been a tumultuous period. Minor movements causing major mishaps causing unending drama, trauma, and afflictions. Yet through it all, despite all of their differences, all of their sides, all of their grievances, betrayals, lack of trust, and all of the many slings and arrows of associating with, relating to, and dealing with kindred, the coterie, for lack of a better word, for lack of better understanding, have managed to suffer in strength. They've managed to shake off most of the larger movements against them. They've managed to outlast the plots designed to leave them as nothing more than a memory. They have, as per their usual, as per their habit, as per their penchant, done the impossible time and time again. Most recently, sight unseen, through their actions, they have managed to find a way to at least open talks with the Tremere. They found a way to at least align themselves superficially enough that the Tremere would be willing to hold a conversation, an honest, diplomatic conversation. The chaos from their actions still having not quite settled. We're going to forward in time a bit, nights being what they are, far shorter than they need to be. But 2 nights since the destruction of the central power base in Chinatown, the longest lasting reigning Khanum, and emperor of the Chicago-based Mon Quai. The smoke, surprisingly not leading anyone to know there was actually a fire or whose hands were involved. We start our scene with the coterie arriving at the Hyde Park Chantry for the premiere. The opportunity to speak at leisure, them being granted the full hospitality of the Chantry, and the need to get all of their ducks lined in a row. So, if you all would be so kind as to roll your rouse rolls at your leisure, we will set about the coterie arriving. They're easing down Blackstone towards the Chantry. The vehicle containing Hestia, Lucio, Miriam, Fia, Felix, Vittoria. A moment of calm after the storm, a moment of calm before the storm, and the real fact that they are heading into, if there is any other place in the entirety of Chicago that would be considered nigh inviolable, it would be the Chantry. Physical harm being what it is, random terrorist actions being what they are, they have grown stronger and wiser since the attack that laid them low, that gave them a black eye almost a year ago. And so the rebuilt, retrofitted, renewed Hyde Park Chantry at the Blackstone Library is amazingly better than ever. There are a few acolytes still tending the ground as per their usual. They're picking up the debris that blows from the nearby condo buildings in the area. They're washing a few of the graffiti stains and etchings from the high school students right up the street. They are ensuring that the sigils, circles of protections, wardings, and various other layers of protections are in place. It's almost insultingly discongruous to see ringed cameras on the doors up the steps to the Chantry, yet there they are. So as you all have a moment of calm inside the vehicle, what pray tell are you all discussing?
So, what guarantees do we have that they're not going to pull the same shit they did the last time we saw them on us?
What guarantees do you ever have?
Well, if I'm still a honorable member of the Chantry, I would be able to probably assure things a little more, but my status is up in the air right now. In name, I'm still attached to the Chantry, but those in the know, I'm technically not. We're trying to fix that possibly, but yeah, that's where we are right now.
So the resounding answer, the most honest reply is that, and as far as insurance goes, the only insurance you all have is what you have here before you. There's Hestia, the regent of the shelter, coterie, Chantry. There's Lucio, the prime La Sombra in the city, as far as most of the understanding and in the know members of the government are concerned. He was the experiment. He was the shining example that made the backdoor dealings and the contract with the La Sombra viable. They proved that despite being denizens of the dark, that there was the opportunity for them to attempt at least being upstanding members of the tower. There's Miriam, the former outsider who had the ear and full grip of the protection of the Bahari. And then there's the newly crowned pater of the Hakata and all that they might bring to the table. Your strength of arms together is your insurance as to your safety in escaping, if not vanquishing, if there are any untoward plans or plots aligned against you. Not sure if that's a comfort to the soul, but it is, as they say, what it is.
I just have a quick question because I know we skipped ahead. Did I get a chance to really tell them about the stuff we saw in the basement? Or
Time to go over it to refresh everyone's memory.
okay, that's what I was because I didn't know whether I assumed that they knew or not, but that would be. So I just want to share some things with you guys since we were split up when all hell broke loose. And second of all, I'm just gonna. I mean, I knew it worked out well and we got out, but when I usually tell you this is not a good thing that's gonna happen, and I head for the fucking door, why would you stay sitting? Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. We went to the basement, and it was just as bad as it was last time, and there were people we knew. Do you remember one of our code members in the early days when you were still kind of fairly new to the group? The guy that I went to the shooting gallery with, and he disappeared and left me by myself to get home? Found out what happened to him.
Remind me, please.
Kind of punchy, like to fight. I don't remember his name. I'm having a hard time.
Joseph from New Orleans.
Yes, Joseph. Yeah. Joseph we split up, and that was the night you guys drove the car through the McDonald's.
You did what?
That was Simone. I think, no. Well, anyway. McDonald's, that's near the shelter. They once drove a car through it to attempt to break up a fight between Simone and somebody else. But, that's neither here nor there. That guy, he was in the basement. I had already warned Miriam not to touch anything, and that no matter what she saw, not to let it affect her. And she did really good. I'm glad. And
I have pictures, and she'll pull her notebook out.
Yeah, and I was trying to get as much information on the sigils and how they were keeping them in suspended animation as possible. So it was mostly a learning thing, and I kind of wanted to see if maybe Vivi was in the basement, but she was not at all, thank goodness. So she's still alive out there somewhere. Well, probably here, but the thing is, when I was walking around the basement, I saw Joseph, and he looked horrible, like a husk of a... What they were doing to us, we're no fucking innocents or whatever, but what they were doing to us for food and profit is fucking horrible. And they had him in the basement, and I swear to you, I wasn't going to do anything more than leave. But they begged me for help. They used whatever energy they had left as I hit the bottom of the stairs and asked to be released. And I had to. And that's why I started that grease fire in the basement that, destroyed the building.
As Hestia says that she heard them talking, she looks super relieved, like visibly relieved, like, oh good, it wasn't just me that was hearing voices this time.
So it sounds to me like it's a good thing we started slaughtering them.
It is always a good thing to leave your enemies understanding that they are enemies, putting them in their place beneath your boot. Far be it for me to interject in this clearly private moment, but Pater Rossellini, if I may, the question at hand is, in your actions of taking note of those sigils, those lovely, lovely sigils, were you aware as to how they worked together in concert? Which ones were important? Which ones were set dressing? Which ones had power? Because without the one Kwai, there is a portion of the blood trade now open. And without stepping on your toes, I understand that you are involved as a lower rung dealer or a middleman. But with that opening, nature abhors the vacuum that we are, and it even abhors more. An opening such as this, if it is not seized, it will be war. And it's not just warfare here in the city after all. The Castigliones formerly operated in joint partnership a processing plant in Gary. They had a staging area in the south suburbs and in the western suburbs. The Wan Kwai, their product is now gone. For a while at least. So the lesser dealers, such as yourself, and those unaligned, will be scrabbling for product, for merchandise.
So what exactly is stopping us from resuming operations?
Well, the Castiglione network still exists, though its actual leadership, the top of the heap, is in question. No one has seen Mr. Karjaks for a few moments, and the others have simply seemingly gone up in smoke.
Then it might be a good time to seize the reins.
Sophia will chuckle at the up in smoke comment. Well, perhaps it is time to send out a message to the remaining Castiglione that they will either fall in line or they will fall.
I am sure a few shows of force will properly cow those mongrels. After all, they are a cousin of a Pudinesca who, well, did what they did. And he looks at Lucio. The clear message sitting there. Lucio bears all the noble signs of the Giovanni as a whole. And more specifically, if one was to be so inclined or brave enough to actually say it instead of hint at it, well, there's a certain familial resemblance across the board for the Giovanni and Rossellini, Pudinesca. Even some Pisanobs actually look more like the stereotypical Giovanni and Pudinesca, especially if they involve themselves in more illicit and illegal activities. The high dark brows, the pronounced cheekbones, the strong jawline, and the hair as dark as midnight's very own soul. All of those things compounding with the paler, non-tanned complexion, the dark piercing eyes, all of those signs of his lineage for all to see.
She will look to Lucio. You have connections in the blood trade, do you not?
That I do.
Perhaps you could be instrumental in starting up, filling a gap, as it were. Would only increase your own wealth and power.
Where do we begin?
You know more about the blood trade than I do, I'm afraid.
In that case, I'll have to look into it more.
Seems there is an existing network and infrastructure in place that is not being used, however.
Then I'll have to look into seeing if I can take control of it.
While we're on a related subject, what is it you all wish before I make moves? Do you wish to remain under the ward of the Hakata, or do you wish to return to the tower?
I think that we can still work together. That's not a problem of working together. We do fairly well when we all work together, it seems. I kind of miss the title of regent just a little bit. I don't want to go back to being a hound, obviously. That was too much fucking work entirely. But I think, obviously, there's going to have to be some caveats met. She looks over towards Juiceable. before we are allowed back into the tower, i.e., Blood Hunt called off completely and not able to be reestablished for a while, and then realizing that we helped the Hakata rather than hurt the Hakata by killing on Woshik. Whatever that means.
These are all things where arrangements can be made. I cannot guarantee that you will not receive some sort of punishment, but I can guarantee you that I will not negotiate a deal that has you blood hunted.
Tess looks towards the end. So thoughts on this? I mean, because obviously some things were good because we were Hakata and we could get away with shit because of being Hakata, but there were some things that slapped us in the face not being Tower anymore. So what do you want to do?
Well, strictly speaking, I was never technically a member of the Camarilla.
I think it would be in our best interest to return to the Camarilla, but only when our safety is assured.
Well, this is a thing that I intended to negotiate, but I thought perhaps you might want some input. Staying within the Hakata is certainly possible, but you will always be outsiders and treated as such.
Which is why I don't think that arrangement will work out long term.
I do not know that you will find it any better in the tower, considering your history.
I
know you.
It's bigger fish, smaller pond, rather than small fish, ginormous ocean-sized pond.
I do know that you all chafe at some of the actions I take, and that would be non-amenable given my new position should you remain as wards and only wards. Well, if this is what you wish, let us go talk to your regent and see if we cannot lay some groundwork for such.
So we turn our gaze from the interior of the well-appointed limo. And the only reason why we say limo instead of limousine, because while it is in fact a stretch limousine, it is far more intimate than the previous SUV limousine that you all were utilizing care of Silvio's Grand Theft Auto. It's a little less designed for conferences and parties on the move. This limo is actually more workaday, and if you weren't paying attention, you would assume that it's just a slightly larger SUV. It's more stealth. Part of that due the very real armaments that you all have yet to test. You haven't driven through a bullet-filled battlefield. You haven't decided to see how well it's fire or flame retardant or resistant. You haven't really tested it in those visceral moments of chaos. All the better. Because as we look at the limo from the outside, the door opening, care of Vittoria having moved with all due alacrity, standing aware, her gaze scanning the neighborhood around you. The condo is a prime location for potential snipers. All of those lit windows from TV screens, computer screens, and sometimes even the room lights are on. But that rooftop would be a spectacular sniping position. This entire street would be prey to anyone smart enough or wily enough to invade that building to plot and lay waiting. It holds our attention. The metro yard, the metro train tracks, which are viewable from a very small sliver of an angle from where you all are parked in front of the Chantry. Also another location that would be very good to utilize as a surgical shooting position. Then there's the fact that the street curves, meaning that where you all are here in front of the Chantry, directly north of you, the street loses itself around a corner. Meaning that if someone was simply lying in wait with a spotter in one of the apartment windows, it'd be too late to do anything more than brace for impact. The street leading to north to get where you all are also equally obfuscated because the street curves back so that it's going directly south past the high school. The apartment buildings on the east side of the street, all brownstones and graystones, and 2 and 3 stories tall, with additional attic space above and additional basement space below. This area is more old Chicago architecture, so the basement space is nearly a full story. They interconnect one building to the next, forming their own maze of spaces. It would be a optimal staging place. It's close enough that you can get inside of long-range options, and hidden enough and obfuscated enough that if you knew your way through it, you can get from one end of the block to the other unseen. And then there's the Chantry itself. The large columns out front holding the roof and all of the fixings and trappings. The sigils you know are now there. You know that they've been retrofitted and refitted and rebuilt upon, and it's not just the wardings of a single mage or warlock. No, it's the wardings of several skilled individuals bending themselves towards the goal of fortifications, layered and relayered and doubled on top of themselves. In short, it is impossible to not be paranoid as you all step out of the vehicle, looking to all the world like a unified front. While we are not very tactically minded as a whole, I'd like to have an idea as to who is in the lead of this entourage, who is pulling up the rear, who's working the wings, as it were, as you all debark from the vehicle.
I would assume that Miriam is neither at the front or the back.
Lucia will take the rear.
Sophia would definitely put herself somewhere in the middle because that's how these things are done.
Has. Okay, seems to be some technical difficulties. So we're going to say that Miriam and Hestia are pulling up the slightly forward positions. It would be Victoria front left of Sophia, which is just ahead of where Hestia and Miriam are. Felix pulling up the near rear right of Sophia, with Lucio pulling up the complete rear, more center, his height and his wariness of things, of course, acting as a rear guard of sort. Unlike most political moments, there's less tension from the potential political traps for Sophia and more for the physical and spiritual traps that may be already in place. Because while yes, there's no way to move to achieve one's goals without boldly striding forward despite whatever is aligned against you, there is still some wariness. Because while the Tremere are nowhere near as skilled overall as the Hakata are when dealing with spirits and the like, and while they're more hammer versus scalpel, in a pinch, a hammer will do. They're not as controlling or domineering. They enter into trade agreements and contracts and compacts that work as close to a win-win when they do enter into dealings with spirits, specters, and the world beyond. But when push comes to shove, their warding is, well, the stuff of legends, especially when they have time to prepare. They have time to dig through their many tomes, grimoires, and occasionally simple oral records to ensure their safety and, at worst, their complete obliteration of such things. So as Dusable is standing there in all of his brocaded glory, his jacket, his coat being more along the lines of something you might find in Marshall Field's circa 1968. It's gabardine, and it's slightly red, though I believe the correct color would be more of a wine, because there's hints of purple beneath the brocading of the gabardine. There is him standing there central. There's two acolytes to his rear right. There's Erichto on his left, and while he stands, both hands resting on the cane in front of him, his heterochromatic eyes, one amber brown and the other slightly grayish blue, seems to pierce the veil of invisibility, looking you all over, as if there's some signal or symbol he's waiting on to verify that you all are actually here on a noble cause, that you all will engage in conversation, and perhaps an arrangement can be made. Perhaps not, but at least you all might part as friends. Erichto, however, stands frowning, her pixie cut dark and ominous as her brows, which are slightly furrowed as she looks from Hestia to Sophia and back. Her own ensemble, more athleisure. She has a hooded North Face jacket loosely open. She's wearing Ugg boots and leggings. She has several rows of rings across her left hand, the gems catching the light. Now, the third of their triptych, however, is missing. Their ace in the hole is missing. Their demon queen is missing. And that has to count for something, after all. They don't have their big, unbridled nuclear weapon ready to unleash upon you all. At least not visibly so. And as you all mount the steps up to the front door, Dusabo's gaze changes and softens, and there's a hint of a smile. As Regent of Regents of the Tremere of Chicago and Master of the Greater Midwestern Chantry, I welcome you, Pater Rossellini, and the entirety of your entourage. Come in and enjoy our hospitality. And then he takes a step forward, offering his left hand, his left gloved hand.
Sophia will extend her own.
My holiest in our hospitality and welcome you, Pater Rossellini, right this way. And he takes a step back and to his left, motioning with his right so that you all would pass before him, between him and Erichto and the two acolytes.
And in we go.
The Chantry hasn't changed much in the several decades of it being formalized as the Chantry. For many years, like most Tremere throughout the country, the Chicago Tremere have held several safe havens and fallback positions in various places. They rarely have an official central Chantry. They always have one, but it is a open secret as to where it usually actually is. Like there's a central Chantry that has all of the presentations of their political might in that city. And then there's a Chantry that actually holds most of their research. And then each of the individual high-ranking members of the Chantry will have their own havens out in the dark. Some at bookstores, some at candle stores, some at Home Depots even. But they'll have several spread throughout the city. Chicago is different because it proudly proclaims where the central Chantry is, where the Chantry is. The open secret being, of course, that while there is a ton of research, a ton of information, and as well protected as it is not in fact the entirety of the Chantry throughout the Chicagoland area. It is not as if all the Tremere from Milwaukee down to Indianapolis report to here as their central location to finding deep, dark secrets. It's not as if DuSable doesn't have several boat holes. It's not as if Enrichto has several boat holes, two of which Hestia has been to and knows of. It's not as if the other members of the Chantry don't have their own research libraries and boat holes to deal with. But here is the central position from which their reach is extended. And as you all move in, the work and effort to awe and amaze guests is clear and evident. Their braziers burning with actual fire, though the fact that it is not the red, yellow, orange fires that most people have come accustomed to. It is the bright, clean, white fire burning at such a pitch and heat that very little of it is actually needed to cast off light. There are candles of all sorts. There's reds, blues, yellows, blacks spread across several candle holders and candelabras throughout the space. The floor is marbled in places, intermingled with actual stone, not just marble. And then there are the walls themselves. You've all been in special places where the stonework has been imported, where huge swaths of things that shouldn't be are there in the wall, where you've seen what the boundaries of the other side, the Shadowlands, are actually made out of. They've hired artisans, toreadors, the Meech, and various others to carve similar walls of actual volcanic rock in places. The light and dark of the stonework and the volcanic stone forming patterns that tantalize and tease the eye, while they clearly show the idea that they are made of soul stuff. Whether that's true or not is up for grabs. And then finally, as every room opens for several seats of comfort, there are the appointings of wide back winged chairs, shades, and other places to recline and study. The walls, each and every one seeming to double as bookshelves and repositories of knowledge there to be obtained. And there's a part of you all that knows that this, while isn't every day for the Tremere, you can tell that there's been some cleaning done, some spiffying up to put their best foot forward. And then there are the acolytes. While outside they wear the common gear of the modern day, jeans, tennis shoes, and the like, inside their robe colors denote their standing, which circle they've made it to. They're reds and blues and yellows and greens, some with 2 sashes, some with 3, some with scarves and various other signs of their station. And all, strangely enough, seem to be wearing glasses. They're wire-rimmed and horn-rimmed, and some that are made of tortoiseshell, but they all wear glasses inside. Finally settling in the meeting room, the chairs for you all to choose at your leisure, DuSable settles in on a love seat with a small coffee table in front of him. It's carved with various images of skulls and the like along his legs and the corners of the table. And then there's several acolytes who buzz in and buzz out, setting down coasters and decanters And once they leave, and it's just Dusable and Erichto, along with the 3 acolytes stationed at 3 corners of the room, he smiles. Let us begin. We'll start with you, Pater Rassalini. As the guest, you get to decide our tempo and where we'll dive into the matters before us.
You do not seem to be one for small talk so much, so perhaps we will just do away with that.
There is a certain etiquette when it comes to that sort of thing. If you would like, we can forego the first 16 steps of small talk and dive right to the matter.
I suppose my sensibilities are a bit more modern in such regards.
Yes, that is a commonality. Many of our younger kindred have decided to do away with tradition. After all, tradition is bad, their sires are evil, is blame it on mother and father and all of that sort of thing. It's to be expected. I understand that you haven't quite made it to a century yet. Good news, neither have I. Not officially.
With age comes power, but sometimes wisdom finds a younger set. Sometimes.
That has been the enviable understanding amongst the Tremere. We are, after all, much like your meteoric rise through the Hakata, a meritocracy here. You get what you earn. You keep what you kill. And most pressingly, what you give to the Chantry is redoubled when given back to you. The students you bring, the eyes you open to the many worlds around us, well, they add exponential value to where we stand. But you did say you wanted to do away with small talk, so let us not while away those moments. We have a very... And he pauses and looks to the acolytes, who each of them settles and finally sits. We have before us a never before realized opportunity. You necromancers have for many years sought our power at the table here with the tower, along with several others who, well, more power to you all for joining together and forming what it is that you've formed. There doesn't have to be any antagonism between us. The contract of non-interference is lapsing. So what better time for us to work together and do away with the traditions of hate that exist between us?
I agree. As I'm sure you have ascertained already, I am not my predecessor. Do not view things in the same way.
Yes, you do not. And that makes certain things and certain strategies a little more problematic and a little bit more difficult to ascertain their potential success. But it also grants us the opportunity to perhaps change the language and tone of our relationships. After all, you have one of our most vaunted potential students in regards to ascertaining the map of the lines of power. You have one of our most vaunted students in Regent level Tremere Magisters at your beck and call. How much have you told her, Hestia? How much have you shared? How much of Karen's estate have you given away to your new alliances?
S's brow kind of hikes. You know me better than that. You know how hard it was for me to share with anybody, including my own. So strangers, not so much. I have given what knowledge is necessary in the moments that they are needed, but further than that, my secrets are my own.
It's a very almost fundamental Tremere understanding as to how to continue relationships. It's good to see that some of the teachings and understandings have not gone by the wayside.
I had heard multiple times before all this happened that I was almost too much Tremere at one point. So there is that. And I would like to, I don't know, I think I was making progress before, again, things happened.
I am glad that you feel that you have been making progress and that you were making progress. That was always a good thing. And forgive me, Peter, I have been far too familiar with a member of your court, your panel, your security team. I'm not exactly sure all of the titles that you, Hakata, use. I understand that instead of there being a prince or baron or commissar or a capo, that you all often use something else. Isn't it a madre, a padre?
Peter is traditional.
Let me see. But isn't it a masculine form of parental?
No more than princes.
Well, typically prince denotes a masculine ideal, and for the most part, the traditions have been that most princes are in fact male. If you look at most of the cities underneath the Camarilla's exclusive rulership, the vast majority of them are in fact male. The exception, of course, never proves the rule.
Not everything has been inflected with modern sensibilities. Some traditions are good to keep.
And speaking of traditions, as the leader of your people, with the security team that you've amassed around yourself, or are they your privy council?
They are my wards.
Oh, I see.
Well, that is a situation that they would like to change.
Well, as your ward, it is not their decision, it is yours. How do you feel about relinquishing your wards to be accountable for themselves as members of a Hakata nation?
I would see them return to the tower.
That is interesting. There's been quite a small bit of campaigning to have the vaunted shelter hounds return to the good graces of the tower so that justice might be meted out. There are several members who see them as a threat. The knowledge that they have, the associations that they've made, the understanding as to what the hounds that serve the prince's will once were. It's a lot of political power you have there. If you force them as your wards to share what they know, the offices, the spaces of meeting, the dead drops, the manner of communications, all of those things could be utilized in an act of aggression.
They could, but I adhere to the promise. That is Camarilla business. It is none of my concern.
I see. And as the only Hakata and former Bahari accepted, as the only Lasombra and former Bahari accepted into the Hakata, have you two shared your former allies' secrets?
None whatsoever.
Uriam will smile at him. Nah, I wasn't really that deep in. Surface level, if you will. Nothing interesting.
The simple matter of our arrangement is that they owed us a favor, a major boon to my predecessor. I feel that perhaps this boon has been fulfilled at this point. And the main thing that they are accused of, the Hakata take no offense to. If there is no offense, there is no crime, yes?
That is an interesting angle to pursue. However, though the wronged party, the aggrieved party, are your people, and you're saying you are absolving them of all perceived as sin, there is the matter, and he lightly smirks, unfurls his brows, and instead of holding his cane upright, rests it across his knees. The moment that he does so, the central acolyte, which is to the right of where you all are sitting with your backs towards the door, moves to the midpoint between where he's sitting on the love seat and where you all are sitting at, bringing the area towards the door. He moves back what is just one of the many tapestries along the wall. Mounted there, like a prized boar's head, is Vivi. She's not staked. She is gagged. There is a steel orb sitting in her jaw. It is affixed with a headband that locks it in place, traveling around, up and over her ears and sealing like a half mask for a balaclava, except for it's just wirework, steel or some other chain-like material fused to the ball that's sitting there in her teeth. Her fangs are slightly curving from the pressure of it being held firm. Her arms equally trussed up and hung on the wall by the chains. Her feet bound, so the only thing that she could do is, if she was of a mind, to angrily rock back and forth, the chain slightly clinking and chinking as she does. Though it's clear that she's done that repeatedly enough that there is no fight left in her physically in the moment.
That was also a matter I wish to speak upon.
Well, there is the matter of this clear breaching of our traditions. Because as far as we are aware, and the records have been looked over to put a small point on the matter. As far as we are aware, the formerly living member of the Shelter Hound pack was a child of Triol. They were not children of the shadows. This particular childer's blood reeks of shadow stuff. In fact, if you had been here when they were at their most virulently angry, the shadows seemed to respond to their will. It took some doing to properly instruct them that what they visited upon the world will be visited upon them, and they still will be denied the sweet embrace of final death.
I do not claim to know of the one who was accused of being her sire.
Well, that's the funny thing. There is one simple ritual that could be done, that could have been done, all it would have taken, and he decants the little small decanter and pours a long pour into the goblet sitting there before him and sits it back down onto the table, is a small bit of the vitae. A small bit. Only, and he holds the goblet up so you can see that there's just barely under half a finger's depth of blood or vitae tinged blood inside the glass. A tasting, and he takes a light sip and sits it back down in front of him. No more than that. No more than that small bit. And we could find who their sire is. Because it is clear their sire is amongst us, still in the land of the living, dead though they might be. It is clear that they still have things to protect. Or at least they had things to protect. And while they gave up their sires, or purported sires, familial relations, we found that they were not long for the world, and it was vitae that was keeping them here. There seems to be some malfunction with their heart that is a ticking time bomb. Their parent, their mother, already mentally disappearing by the moment. A good, clean death would be a mercy. Which is not a mercy that we have in us. We cannot show such weakness because, after all, it is a dog-eat-dog world out there.
I suppose through mystical means or not, you have a grand reveal.
Oh, you're not supposed to peek behind the curtain.
I cannot help myself.
But very well. Yes, the grand reveal is this. We know what we know. The government, the Privy Council of Prince Jackson, does not know what we know. And while the council is split in parts, aligning for and against pursuing every opportunity to punish and otherwise detain and harass the shelter coterie for the betrayal of moving from our good graces, the elite heir of the tower, to the Hakata, amidst all of their previous crimes and the call for a blood hunt against them. There are still supporters. We are effectively a swing vote. While I think it would be a bad idea for them to be hounds, I also know that there's some political advantage to it. There's some inoculation versus what might befall them. And most pressingly, we need more visceral security for ourselves with everything that is happening amongst our own interests.
Well, let us drop the doublespeak then. We both know you are an intelligent man, and that you know that they were never part of the Hakata. I brought them under the umbrella of the Hakata to save them from a blood hunt for a transgression they committed that needed to be committed on behalf of my clan. Now is the time to rectify that and see them restored.
As hounds?
Not as hounds. They do not even wish to be hounds.
All the better. And as a man that can do the job that does not want to do it, that you should use. Better to use an enemy than a friend, after all.
As for this Vivi, she too has committed transgressions against the Hakata. And I feel that were it politically advantageous to have ended her, it would have happened. Now it has been delayed too long.
Oh, yes. The many things that she's revealed, it could very well still cost her her life. As tight-lipped as she is, as honestly able to bend the truth and lie as she has been, Even in lies, there is enough truth to discern the whole of the picture, if one is wary enough to understand such things. Isn't that true, Detective Darcy?
It most certainly is.
So, we have an understanding as to what intelligence the warlords of Chicago have. You all have ascertained and stated your cases, saying that you understand we know certain things. So now would be the time for us to haggle over the price you want out of being a ward. Being taken back to your second childhood, as it were, and be given status once more as good upstanding members of the tower, free of all of the clouds hanging over your head. But you haven't offered anything to sweeten the pot.
Tess starts smirking as he's talking and clears her throat. We fully expect that there will be some form of punishment, as we would not wish for the higher-ups to go looking foolish. We know that it would cost them much to return us to any sort of status. So no, we don't wish to be free and clear. What punishment we will serve, I'm sure, can be discussed. But the thing is, we know that you know. But do you know what we know? Have you been to Dalton lately, that little jazz club we used to like to go to some years ago? Have you been too busy? And she gives him a very pointed look.
I have not had the opportunity to play. I have not had the opportunity to take in as much jazz as I would like. So many things to do, so little time to have them done in. So the question, based on your hinting, I am to assume that you believe there's something in the south suburbs that I might
Just a bit of jazz. You really ought to make the time. I'm sure Mal Davis would like to hear that you're doing well.
I see. I don't believe you quite understand what it is that you're hinting at. The question is it worth finding out? There's no reason for us to be enemies in this regard, especially being as if what I think you might be attempting to say is what you're actually attempting to say. Allow me to say this much. Despite the rumors and allegations as to my connection to Mal Davis, I assure you that under tests carried out by Erichto or any other warlock, that the connection would not be as one believes it to be.
But therein lies the problem. What one believes it to be is more damning than what it is.
Yes, it is. Perception eventually becomes reality, even if there is no factual basis to it. Even if the evidence attests otherwise, the allegation would be out there. The doubt would be planted. And that has a certain value, a certain mutually assured public destruction. Though, it's a trigger that can't be pulled. Because again, better for us to work as allies and friends versus enemies.
One can never have too many allies.
Your destruction of the one Kwai was a opening salvo towards us potentially working together going forward. You'll be losing a good portion of your wards if the Tremere act as tiebreaker and support the reinstatement of the shelter coterie.
In exchange for your backing on this matter, in addition to your recognition of my title, and perhaps for the life of Vivi, because she does owe us a debt as well, I have a thing to offer you. I am to understand that you lost one of your number who had unique knowledge.
2, but yes.
I understand that the knowledge that you lost is something that my family excels in.
Yes, the Venetian death merchants that form the basis of your clan have a certain predilection to or understanding and a greater grasp of dealing with necromantic issues, spirits, souls, specters, white, and all sorts of things from the other side. Yes.
What if I could make it easier for you to continue to communicate with this lost asset of yours?
So instead of using the dustborn go-betweens who have a connection to Sylvia, you are saying that you would be able to, wrest her energies from their control so that we might have full communication with them.
Do they control her, or does she control them? They did revere her quite greatly.
Yes, always problematic when dealing with true believers instead of taking the matter for what it is.
But I could bind her to a thing, perhaps in an area that is, shall we say, weaker for her to get across. That might allow her to impart her knowledge as she wishes, perhaps train someone else in what she knows.
See.
If that is a thing that you might find valuable.
That has a immediate intense value. Much better than the threat of outing one's potential familial or gossip rumored familial ties. There is still a unfair rate of exchange. The Camarilla being as exclusive as it is, factoring into my decision. We only tolerate and accept a certain strata of individual. There is still the very real matter of elitism that must be maintained. Your positions as Tremere, Alpha La Sombra, and Bahari Whisperer had value.
What good is elitism without those you can look down upon?
I propose this. As Primogen, I have the power, the authority to claim my own whip and hounds for the Tremere. It would grant protection, and it would show the obvious reason why I would support your reintroduction and support your pater's suggestion for you all to be once more in the good graces of the tower. It will provide me protection for making such a rash decision. The fallout will be minimized for my political standing and for the standing of the clan as a whole. And it would potentially prevent others from looking into why and how we are making this arrangement. So what do you three say? Will you accept positions within Clan Tremere? Or shall we find another valuable, believable reason why you all are receiving such mercy?
Sophia will just look to the three of them.
Miriam will just look at Hestia.
I don't suppose we could add a deal with the circulatory system to the mix just to sweeten the pot?
Every bit is helpful. It's funny you should mention that. There is a member of the circulatory system campaigning for your acceptance as members of good standing. I believe you may have heard of him, a Cameron Orm.
I'm quite familiar with him, and I'm very glad to know that he's in good spirits.
One can never attest to what spirits those damned ministry are actually in. But he and Marcel are campaigning for you all to have dual citizenship. They're offering the ability to bring you before the justice of the government with so long as you all receive leniency.
Everything seems amenable to me. Hestia, what do you think?
I've been listening to all of this and puzzling through it. The other night, last night at the Rehappiness, I was watching you closely and you bit your lip. And it's been bothering me all evening last night as to who that reminded me of. And I remembered finally Garwood. Baby Chorus. Garwood Marshall. And it's the strangest thing, because I know I have some of Karen's mannerisms, but it makes you wonder who rubbed off on who. And that's not a threat, it's just a strange thing that's stuck in my head. Noticing that mannerism, the biting of the lip when nervous. Wasn't... yeah, I remember them supposedly having been lost in the War of the 90s. So strange that if that was how things went, you would still repeat such mannerisms even now. But again, I agree that it would be best to be friends, or at very least loose acquaintances and working together in things. And working towards a mutual goal instead of at each other's throats and making new threats. We would rather not have to do such things, obviously. So, however we can make that work, whether it be coming back here and playing bodyguard, I'm perfectly fine with that.
And you, child of the Bahari, what say you as a hunted member of society, as an outsider? Will you come and serve the Tremere publicly so that you might have the umbrella and aegis of our support? Or is this the point of the evening where someone conscientiously objects?
Miriam will just chuckle softly. You said that someone was campaigning for dual citizenship. What does that pertail?
It's an end around to have you all serve two masters so that your failures of doing so could be used as leverage.
Funny that you mentioned failure, because oddly enough, we were set tasks that seemed nigh impossible and almost suicide missions and still got them done. Whether they were done satisfactorily to certain people's specifications is one thing or another, but they got done.
Yes, your successes are legendary. The gossip still surrounds you in that regard. However, the Camarilla is still held to the standard of the initial 7 traditions, plus the practices of the prince. The Hekata have their own laws and rituals and traditions amongst themselves. That is a minimum of 14 plus commandments that you'd have to abide in every public situation. And the push for it is coming from a well-known member of the ministry. And we know how trustworthy they might be. After all, they're drug dealers and criminal mastermind gang leaders who have found a loophole due to Prince Jackson's leniency. There is something else afoot there. This I can assure you. What it might actually be, I could not begin to tell you. I could simply state that I know that everything that it is in fact a trap. It is in fact being designed so that they might profit from your labors and profit more by your failures. You inadvertently, let's say you inadvertently, incidentally, accidentally created a childer past you. You managed to sneak it past the radar. No one notices, no one has a reason to question. I'm sure that childer wouldn't have been handpicked and put in your path by them. No, that's ludicrous. Or, Lucia, your practice, your skills at investigating, turning up information that you can't keep to yourself, something that you are ethically bound to report. I'm sure that information would have come into your path honestly and not through the machinations of the Setites. And you, the former Bahari, I'm sure that you would not be drugged down and hunted like the rest of the Bahari once it comes out that you are starting your own temple, your own adherence to the Baham way. There is something else afoot. This is so much an effort on their part to have weapons at the ready. And it is not something that I can support. One side of the line or the other. Even with your support amongst the government, this is probably your best, most punitive action-free route. But perhaps you need more time to think on it. If you all will allow me, I will give you a few moments amongst yourselves to properly consider what lay ahead for all of us. What is potentially a great and profitable future. And he gets up and looks at Hestia a little long, and then leaves you all. The acolytes, all but one leaves, and the one that remains moves farther across the room so he would not be able to hear what you all are saying.
Do I have a guess as to what that look might have been about?
Well, you did mention his child who was killed by lupines in the war of the 90s. The same war that took Karen from you. You know your feelings on that. You know how even now the idea of Karen being taken from you is still considered to be a Tremere plot on your part.
Yeah, so in a way, in a sense, she reminded him that there are still things that have gone, I guess, unsaid and undone between them. So she's okay with that, and will, at some point in the future, attempt to speak with him privately and hash it all out. But for now, she looks to the others. Well, do we set ourselves up to be played Patsy again? Because obviously we only just got out of that. We all know having been appointed as hounds was setting us up for bullshit. So, do we go back to that, or do we just work with potentially almost the devil himself and keep our secrets and have our secrets kept?
She's like sitting right there.
And then realizing what she said, again, I don't mean you. We have our own things going on. And I understand those things. I'm coming to be familiar and comfortable with those things. The devil, he looks like a sweet old man. I trust and believe me, he does look like a sweet old man, but he is no such thing.
I'm inclined to accept the deal. I don't think dual citizenship would work out in our favor. I think that would just end up being the same situation as we had before, but now with twice as many people trying to get in our way. I don't think staying with the Hecata is feasible in the long term, as we previously discussed.
Oh, no, I'm not anointed at all, says Felix.
What, were you beginning to like us or something?
You all, even with your lack of spiritual ownership, still are able to enjoy the randomization of probability fields in your direction due to your connections to, well, your haven. You all make potent tools, even in your many failures and transgressions against traditions and laws and basic decency, are able to pull success from nothing more than the burnt embers of failure. Can you, in good conscience, understanding that, consider yourselves something that is easily replaced? Understanding how that works, do you consider yourselves so low as to not be an advantageous piece on the board? And no offense, better the devil you know, and he motions towards Sophia, than all of the many myriad of devils that dance in that one's mind. You see how callously he looks at everyone save Hestia. You see how he inadvertently, directly threatens and says, no need for threats. Better the devil you know than all of those demons.
He does know your secret with Vivi, however, and that is not necessarily a thing that I can make go away.
We could always inadvertently break her now so that she can't spew any more secrets, even if they wanted to. Damaging her beyond reproach so that he can't milk her for more information with her carefully constructed lies that, well, you see how well she treated her human lover. He ended up being nearly a meal for the Wan Kwai.
Miriam will arch her eyebrow. I think the poor girl's been through enough.
While Felix is speaking, and he mentions the part about the human lover having almost been the meal of the Wan Kwai, she's going to watch Vivi this whole time because she knows better than to think, as broken as Vivi is, that she is not paying very close attention.
Would you be so kind as to roll your intelligence and academics, or what else might actually help you? Very nice. There's so many. Do you have anything pertaining to riddles or clues or languages?
Obviously, I have awareness puzzles.
Okay. So yeah, you can roll intelligence and awareness with your specialty as well. There's a price of doing business. It's a running tab for most things. It just keeps compiling and compounding and compiling and compounding. The cost of doing business, being involved with the military, is the learning of several dead languages, several old ciphers, being taught to understand them and utilize them. And it takes a second. But as Hestia decides to stare into the very soul of Vivi, she realizes this whole entire time Vivi has been talking. And by talking is the vernacular meaning communicating. It means that the entire time Vivi has been communicating in a way that no one's been paying any attention to. And you're sure that Vivi has consistently been communicating in that way. No one pays attention to how many times someone else blinks. Typically not. Kindred don't need to blink. They do so to appear human. They do so to appear living. They're not bothered by most things that fall into their eyes or into their gaze. As long as it doesn't actually block their corneas, they're mostly okay. As long as it doesn't actually destroy the eye, they're okay. Yet Vivi has been blinking this whole time. And it takes a second to realize that those blinks are not blinks. They are, in fact, Morse code. It's not SOS. It's worse than that. Fail safe. Safe fail? No, that is in fact fail safe. Fail safe. Fail safe. Over and over again. The insistency behind it when Dizzy was mentioned seems to be the fire behind what she's trying to communicate. Fail safe.
Hess stands and kind of stretches like she needed to, release some tension. Obviously, this whole meeting has been quite tense. And she is going to carefully circle closer to Vivi, but not run right to her, but just close enough in passing so that she can acknowledge the fact that she understood that she was being communicated with. She also knows that the little acolyte that's still in the room is going to do his best to report back anything that is discussed, even though he's pretending not to be listening. So she can't outright ask Vivi anything. She's going to connect eyes with her so that she knows that part of the message is received and it's safe to go to the next part of the message or whatever she's trying to do.
Unable to nod her head, and as we are approaching 19 after the hour, let's take a quick 10 to be back at 29 after. Lucio needs to walk the pup and we need to grab beverages, so see you all back here at 29 after.
Yeah, confused.
Damn, what did I miss?
We took a quick 10.
Yep.
Is that all I missed?
Yeah, for the most part. So the deal on the table is Hestia has gone over to more closely inspect Vivi. She hasn't quite gotten within touching range, but she's moved closer to Vivi and is holding eye contact. Sophia hasn't really moved, neither has Victoria nor Felix. Felix is being remarkably silent, posting up as Sophia's right-hand advisor, standing just behind her to her right. He still hasn't taken a seat. Miriam's present state of mind is up in the air because there's been a lot of poking by Dusabo in regards to her being a Bahari, underscoring that. Just the same way that he's been poking at Lucio being a Lasombra, as well as the elitism of being an actual official member of the Camarilla. So, the usual at this point. Games of politics played at large.
Okay, I have a quick question. What happened to older Disick after we went back to I guess we went to the Haven last night before we came here today. So what did we do with Disick?
Question: what did you do with Disick?
I would assume he's sleeping it off.
He sure was tasty.
Well, he is, in fact, now a ghoul. He's only had one drought, so the initial burst and the loss of a few months, if not almost a year of age, a return of certain levels of vitality is a lot to deal with. One of the many aspects of why it is easy to ghoul someone is because all it takes is one rouse worth of actual vitae, and in that time, based on their physicality, where their decline due age, most of that is taken away once that drought hits. Once that fullness is absorbed, that kindred vitae undoes the ravages of time for them. So it's like drinking from the fountain of eternal life, and that's an addictive thing. You're internally younger, you're internally stronger, you're internally hardier. There's no downside to it in the moment.
Okay, so once Tess gets those words, her brow is going to come up and she's going to nod and then turn and look at the others. We need to agree to this or not agree to this and cut this short because we have something to do. And she kind of comes back to them and leans over between Miriam and Lucio, hoping that Sophia is close enough to hear, but be far enough away from the acolyte that he won't hear if she lowers her voice enough.
Yes, that is very, very doable. You are far enough away from the acolyte where he wouldn't be able to hear, but he is taking in physical mannerisms and that like.
We have a serious problem. If we are going to rejoin the Camarilla, there better be a Camarilla to rejoin. Disick is a failsafe. He's a kill switch. He's been missing from his stuff for 2 nights, and if he doesn't get back to it to stop whatever the hell he started, the whole entirety of the tower will be masquerade breached and burned to the ground.
Just like with Redwood.
Well, then let's hop to, I suppose. Our first priority was rescuing Vivi.
And rescuing her would go a long way towards soothing Disick to get him to stop whatever the hell it is he did. But either way, we have to get him back to his Sphinx to stop whatever it is.
Fabulous.
She is very much tied into this, apparently.
Well, then you need to come to a decision very quickly.
I've said my piece. I think we should take the deal, but are there any objections?
If I might, Peter Rossellini, sorry to intrude. Always, forever sorry. But, knowing what you know, if these particular kindred are allowed to leave under their own power, they could be used against you later. They know enough to be able to allow others to formulate plans to act against us. You would most assuredly need a promise, especially as you have the spiritual ownership of their haven.
Hess looks at Felix when he says that. Oh, so you admit it.
You mean that's not enough of a guarantee?
One would assume that the life boons they owe me would be enough guarantee.
One would assume, but they are being offered a golden ticket, as it were, in the employ of a very dangerous warlock. One does not become the regent of the greater Midwestern Chantry without certain leanings. One does not become primogenitor of the entirety of a clan without certain leanings. His willingness to accept them back and act as a swing vote, to act as his arms and agents, representatives of the Tremere, without actually being Tremere. Agent provocateurs to bend to his will and force other matters while maintaining a very superficially publicly clean hand.
You keep poking. What is it that you have to lose in all this? Because it seems like you have something to lose. And as for not Tremere, thank you very much. I am Tremere.
Oh, I do apologize. It's so very hard to tell which clan someone might belong to. And based on your mannerisms, you don't seem very Tremere.
Sophia will attempt to not smirk at how backhanded that was.
Oh, Hess heard it, and she caught it, and she gives him a sickly sweet smile. Almost like you're gonna say, you know, you're quite well spoken for one of you next. But anyway, you didn't answer my question. What is it in this for you?
My agreement with Peter Rossellini is not any of your concern. Needless to say that their success is very much indicative of my success. And I want to ensure that their reign lasts longer than the end of the contract. I would like to ensure that we Hakata are no longer potentially victimized by the tower. And with everything brewing south and everything brewing here, it is better to, as your coterie mate queried upon our arrival here, assurances. Because let's place things plainly in front of us. If you have the backing of your regent and you are allowed back into the tower without any punitive actions of the sort that would be debilitating to you, you have every reason to seek revenge or actions. He has every reason to push you in that direction as a sign of his own power. I mean, you could do so indirectly because you know where everything is, or quite a few things are. Why wouldn't you?
Because we know each other's dirty laundry. Sophia knows quite a few things about us that nobody else knows, and we know some things about Sophia that nobody else knows. So it would be mutually destructive to attack.
So other assurances, not what's owed, would make things far more amicable. A statement, a word given to honor your life boon to the pater. A agreement here before witnesses, myself. And he looks towards Vivi. Someone's childer, and I'm taking it being as you hid your state is as Tremere, more than likely your own, correct? Your ability to grasp and manipulate shadows, learned through some ulterior means.
Oh, is that what you got from the conversation?
Well, your soon-to-be regent and capo did point a direction into that area. And dealing backdoor with spirits very much seems something that Tremere would love to do. Unless, of course, there's something else that you all aren't saying.
You make some good points. We could all decide to turn on each other and destroy each other in the process, but at the same time, I think working together would be a much more lucrative option for all of us. Wouldn't you agree?
I would not. Not without assurances. For instance...
And what assurance exactly would you need?
An agreement that you all would honor not just the letter, but the spirit of your life boon to the pater.
I'm flattered that you would think that we would be so underhanded.
It is a natural kindred thing to do. For instance, if I were in the pater's position, I would willingly allow you all to go back to the tower. I would willingly allow you to pledge and bind yourself to someone with some political power, such as a primogen or a regent. Because when using your secrets to destroy you, it would lay them low. Were you saying that you're not going to honor your ties to the primogen of the Tremere and the regent?
I'm saying that I'm not as underhanded as you are. How is that for plain?
It's quite plain spoken of you. And I'm glad that you believe that I am underhanded, even as I openly and brazenly demand that we not be. How long? No, that's rude. I wouldn't ask that. But it's glad to see that you've died so recently that you can hold on to a bit of your humanity. It will be a joy watching that dissipate eventually. It's not as if you've been bombarded by spiritual monsters, lupines, and other kindred long enough that you understand that the weight of survival requires a bending of one's own human understanding of ethics and morality.
As I said, at the end of the day, it's not your decision, it's hers.
Yes. Yes. And I can't willingly, without saying my piece, to stave off the natural inclinations that come with the blood. The decision, of course, is the pater's, of course. But if things were to go untoward and I had not said my piece, or I kept things from her, that would be far more dangerous. Silence is deadly. Keeping truths to oneself presents nothing but failures. And at the end of the day, the only reason to want your partner, associate, coterie member, your herald to fail is because of the natural duplicitousness that comes with the blood. And I do not wish, nor want, nor hope for my pater's failure.
I believe they will honor their debts to me because it is not currently within them to do otherwise.
Ouch.
Besides,
I did not think that you would consider your honor a insult.
it also seems that we are not quite fashionable enough for your living pater, and she'd probably rather have a much more malleable and fashionable group at her side rather than us. So everybody's trading up, it seems. Again, Lucio just stated we would not do such, and I am stating that we would not do such. And if you wish blood oaths or whatever it is that you're hinting at, that we would not do such, then I guess we should do that and get it over with because we don't have a lot of time.
The decision is yours. I do not see where a blood oath will make any difference on top of what is owed. You will not honor one, you will not honor the other.
As you wish, my pater. As you wish.
She will shoot him a reassuring look, as much as she's capable in her current monstrous state.
F looks between the two of them and smiles for a second. Just one thing, Sophia. Be careful that one doesn't stab you in the back while he's kissing your ass, okay?
For the record, he begins clearing his throat. I have never stabbed anyone in the back. I've beheaded a few enemies. I've disemboweled several others. I have carved out the hearts of several generations of a family. But I've never stabbed anyone in the back. Because I assure you, if I were to do such a thing, it would not be Miss Rossellini whose back I would attack.
I know.
Thank you for the warning.
Ass is nice.
We should get on with it.
Peter Rossellini, would you like me to go find the regent and bring them here?
That was the one he left behind, Ken.
And gesture towards the acolyte.
The acolyte perks up and draws closer. Would you all like a refreshment or a refreshing of your drinks? Is there something else I can assist you with?
A refreshment would be lovely, but we also need the regent.
Oh, but of course. Then he moves towards the door, cracks it open, nods to someone on the outside, and then returns to his position across the room. The door not being completely closed, swings open 3-4 minutes later, with Dusabo returning. His jacket has been removed. He's down to his vest and his shirt sleeves. It is clear that he was engaged in something that required some bit of mobility in the time while he waited. Erichto doesn't return with him. It is literally just Dusabo. The other two acolytes don't return either. And he settles once more on the love seat. His cane, instead of being held at attention, resting across his thighs once more. Well, where does this place us?
It seems that the consensus is out of the frying pan and into the fire, so to speak.
Excellent. That is a good decision. I look forward to working with you all. It will take a few nights for me to properly swing the support in our favor so that you won't be privy to any of the calls for your blood or pounds of flesh. In that time, I'd like to welcome you back into the Camarilla and offer you a token of my appreciation. And he nods to the acolyte, who begins unchaining Vivi and lowering her to the floor. There is one small thing, one small bit of fine print. Nothing large or grandiose, but as agents of the Chantry, as a regent level Tremere and party of soon-to-be whips and Tremere hounds, sheriffs, if you will, of the Tremere clan here in Chicago, there is a recently discovered Bahari temple inside of your former domain. It has been beset and taken into the control of... Now, bear with me. I don't want to misspeak their name, but they are the First National Army of the Children of Dusk, a radicalized faction of Thin Bloods who believe that their current leader, general, or whomever the person is in charge, is not quite up to the standards of pushing their agenda. Many of them practice a twisted art and religion of worshiping the sun, like the ancient Egyptians. They also, if word is to be believed, hold several grimoires taken from the Chantry of the Iron Rose. If you are able to, and I believe that you might, being as you know your former domain better than most others aside from, well, the Bahari, dispatch them in any way that you see or deem necessary. It will take some small amount of time for reconnaissance and action, and making sure and ensuring that your hands are clean enough and free enough that none may begin to ask questions. And while you do so, obtaining the grimoire and ensuring that your domain is free of those accursed dustborn that will surely lower your stock, I will work with the professor and Calhoun so that our partnership, our alliance, can assure and ensure that you all receive no punitive actions and are accepted back into the tower. This works for you all, doesn't it?
Indeed, we look forward to working with you.
And you. It is a glorious partnership that we have ahead of us. And as far as our Tremere to Hakata alliance, these Dustborn are part of the network that has worked diligently to antagonize, harry, and harass your Castiglione and Torre empire. They have claimed several sites for themselves, and if you find it in your heart of hearts to send your agents to assist these lovely whip, hound, and cherub of the Tremere, it will only strengthen our bonds. And what remains of their knowledge, stolen though it is, we will gladly share upon his return to us. Does that sound amicable, amiable, and amenable?
We already intended to retake what is ours. So yes.
Excellent. So we are of an accord. And he snaps his fingers, and the acolyte who's luring Vivi and has her on the ground is releasing most of the chains, nods, and heads out of the room. Once you all are alone, Sabo rests his cane, heel down, and says, so that we are clear, moving forward, we will not mention Garwood Marshall, especially inside the Chantry or anywhere else there might be members of the clan. We will not mention the state of affairs that has led Vivi to be in our care. And we will not mention, most importantly, what happened to Ed, the Queen of Spades, in Thornton. Do we have a clear understanding between us? We are all on the same page?
Crystal clear.
Excellent. If you all would like, we do have a recreational room where aperitifs and donors are made available thanks to the working relationship with the current blood czar of the city. Otherwise, I might show you all out.
Perhaps a rain check on dinner and a show.
I do fear that I have matters to attend to, but they may make their own decisions, obviously.
Oh, yes, we should probably be heading out and handling some things, especially this task that we were given. So, yeah. And she will stand and nod and wait for Vivi to be handed over.
As Vivi shimmies and shakes the chains off, Gustavo moves towards her, helping her to her feet. The look that he exchanges with her, or the fact that he tries to hold her eyes, does not go unnoticed. What he says next, however, is definitely injury to insult, because as he helps her to her feet, he says, you understand that this was simply business and nothing personal. I wish you a very long life, if you are able to hold it. She doesn't say anything, but they hold a moment or two, and then he escorts her into your care. As you all leave, with DeSable escorting you through the Chantry back out the way that you all come, and back the way that you all came into the Chantry, the splendor and luxury of the Chantry somehow seems more and yet less warm, as if there's something in the offing. Being so inundated with the forces of the spiritual around you constantly, consistently, it is a welcome weight. It's like a weighted blanket. However, you notice that it is there in places where realistically and honestly it shouldn't be. As you all make it back outside into the limousine, what are your plans for the evening as we draw to a close? What is it that the coterie are heading towards? What is it that they are screaming through the night to try to accomplish before sunrise?
Presumably to stop the failsafe.
Right.
That's priority number one, stopping the failsafe, getting Vivi and Jessica back together so that whole situation can be ended, and then I guess deciding what happens to Vivi and Jessica after that. Like, do we push for them to leave the city and disappear forever, or what do we do with that situation? So I guess that would be the next thing to decide. Lastly, I guess starting to look into this whole temple thing.
Sophia would say that you should take Vivi for now to smooth over the thing with the Dizzik fellow, and then after that is taken care of, then Vivi can come repay her debt to the Haggadah.
So with plans afoot, you all go screaming from the Tremere Chantry. It would be ludicrously underwhelming to say how their plan is carried out, how the failsafe actually works. But it is one of constant contact. There's a time frame to Dizzy being back to his tech. Because his tech is in fact the key. There's no real password to it. It's out there in the ether. It's floating through several hundred different clouds. And if he doesn't log in, it is released slowly, adding to itself and growing exponentially. Like a torrent file, it is hidden in several hundred different places and only coalesces upon his lack of interaction with it. He doesn't even know exactly everything that's there. And you know in that moment that it was Vivi's failsafe, and that he is her password to keep it at bay. If things go wrong, well, she'll have her revenge from beyond the grave. And with that thought hanging over the coterie's head, understanding that this is a long-range plan that she has clearly spent the time when she was hunting down the Castigliones putting into place, it's clear that her interactions with Dizzik are, yes, out of love, yet end all be all, she plans on ensuring that the monsters that made it possible for the one person she cared about outside of her family to die will suffer. And that being the case, I'd like to thank you all for a lovely episode. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Good night, guys.
Night.
Have a good night, everyone.